Okay, now let's keep moving along here in our second short little video. In this video, or this portion of the study guide, I am going to cover friction because it goes right along with our laws of motion. If you remember our laws of motion here, it was all about having balanced forces. Okay, now the problem is on Earth is that we never truly have balanced forces because there is always a force that is acting against the motion of an object, and we call that friction. Whether it's moving across the land, through the water, or through the air, there is going to be some resistance or a resistance force here that is going to work against that motion. Okay, so what can we define friction as? As I just said, it is considered to be a force, and it's acting against two things. It's acting either against the speed of the object, or again, it's acting against the direction of the object. In other words, it's working against its velocity. Remember, velocity being a vector is speed and direction. There are two types of friction that we talked about. There is that static form of friction, and there is also what we call kinetic friction. Now, static friction occurs when two objects that are stationary. An example of two objects being stationary would be your laptop sitting on top of your desk right now. Neither object is moving. There is static friction between those two objects. While kinetic occurs when the two objects between two objects, at least one, if not both, but at least one of those is moving. Okay. Now I'm just going to put static here in red so that we understand. So static, stationary, kinetic, moving. Okay. Now, as we were saying, kinetic friction occurs between two objects moving. Therefore, we can have three different types of kinetic friction. And those three different types of kinetic friction are what we call sliding friction. That's when, for example, if you would slide a book across your desktop or slide your computer across your desktop. Another thing that we can do, or another type, is we can put, or we do put wheels on that, but we still have friction. It's just not as much. We call this rolling friction. And finally, as I said, we have friction when we move through water or through the air. So that is the movement through a fluid. So there is fluid friction. Now, down here in the matching, then, you guys are supposed to figure out what is what. Obviously, if I'm swimming in a pool, okay, if I'm swimming in a pool, that is involving a fluid. So I'm pushing against the water pushes back, third law of motion, but the friction between me and the water is going to slow me down just a little bit. That's why I have to keep swimming. If I push a crate across the floor, it is just simply sliding across the floor. The crate is not going to have the wheels. It'd be rather hard. So again, we have our sliding friction. If we wanted that to be easier to do, then we would put it on something with wheels. A ball rolling across the floor, well, it says right there in this that it is rolling, so obviously that is a form of rolling friction. Getting windburn, again, the reason that you get windburn there is because you are passing through the air. Okay, and that air, again, is a fluid, so we have fluid friction. Okay, a car going down the road, the car is on wheels. As it goes down the road, since it is on wheels and tires, this is going to be a form of that. And finally, I mentioned this earlier, pushing a book across your desktop or pushing your computer across the desktop, it would slide across the desktop. So those are all examples of the 3 different types of friction that we had talked about earlier. Now, we have talked about how friction is necessary in some cases. In some cases, we do not want friction. Okay? So writing on a paper with pencil, erasing a wrong answer, brushing your teeth in the morning, these all are forms of friction that are very helpful. Okay, we could not do those without friction. On the other hand, we don't necessarily want to wear holes in our clothing and get rug burns or get rug burns when we fall down on carpet. So this would be what we consider harmful friction. Okay, so again, that was our quick lesson that we had talked about earlier with friction. Again, take some time here. I'm going to give you a few seconds here to get this completed, and then your sub will start your 3rd video, which will start talking about momentum.